Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Radha Vihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavalabha Hari Yasodhanandana Raja Janaranjana Andana Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Radharani Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Hey. Can everybody see the Bhagavatam now? The database? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayat. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 66, Verse 10. We're going through from 10 through 14, so I'll run through the Sanskrit and the translations up to the 14th verse, and then we can all chant the Sanskrit together. Iti dutastamakshepam swamine sarvamaharat Krishna pirattamasthaya kashyamupajagamaha. When the Lord had thus spoken, the messenger conveyed his insulting reply to his master in its entirety. Lord Krishna then mounted his chariot and went to the vicinity of Kashi. Purporting Krishna, Srila Prabhupada describes this incident as follows, quote, the messenger carried the words of Lord Krishna to his master Ponjaka, who patiently heard all these insults. Without waiting any longer, Lord Sri Krishna immediately started out on his chariot to punish the rascal Ponjaka, the king of Karusha. Because at the time he was living with his friend, the king of Kashi, Krishna surrounded the whole city of Kashi. Ponjakopi tadudyogam upalabhya maharataha akshohinibhyam samyukto nishchakrama puradritam. Upon observing Lord Krishna's preparations for battle, the mighty warrior Ponjaka quickly went out of the city with 2 full military divisions. Okay. I'll chant line by line, and then you guys can repeat line by line. We'll go through it that way. Tasya Kashi Patir Mitram Parshnigrahodmayanripa Akshohini Bhistishribhir Apashat Panjakam Harihi Sankaryasi Gadasharnga Srivatsyadhyupalakshitam Bibhranam Kauštubhamanim Vanamala Vibhushitam Kausheya Vasasi Pite Vasanam Garudadhvajam Amulya Malya Bharanam Spuran Makara Kundalam. Does somebody want to chant the Sanskrit?
I can try.
Yes, please.
तस्य काशीपतिर्मित्रं पाष्णिग्राहो न्वयानृपा औक्षिणीभिस्तिश्रीभिरपश्यत् पौण्ड्रकं हरि शङ्खारि असिगदा शार्न श्रीवत्सादि उपलक्षितं बिभ्राणं कौस्तुभमणिं वनमाला विभूषितम् कौशेयवाससि पीते वशानं गरुडध्वजम् अमूल्यमौल्याभरणं स्फुरन्मकरकुण्डलं. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Tasya, his, Pundrakas. Kashipatihi, the master of Kashi. Mitram, friend. Parshnigraha, as the rear guard. Andvayat, followed. Nripa, O king, Parikshit. Lakshoni, Lakshohini bihi, with divisions. Tishribihi, 3. Apashyat, saw. Punjakam, Punjaka. Harihi, Lord Krishna. Shanka, with conch shell. Hari, disc. Asi, sword. Gada, club. Sharnga, Sharngabo. Srivatsa, with the Srivatsa sign of hair on his chest. Adi, and other symbols. Upalakshitam, marked. Bibhranam, bearing. Kaustuభamanim, the Kaustubha gem. Vanamala, with a garland of forest flowers. Vibhushitam, decorated. Kausheya, of fine silk. Vasasi, a pair of garments. Pite, yellow. Vasanam, wearing. Garuda Dvajam, his banner marked with the image of Garuda. Amulya, valuable. Mauli, a crown. Abharanam, whose ornament. Spurat, gleaming. Makara, shark-shaped. Kundalam, with earrings. Translation: Pundraka's friend, the king of Kashi, followed behind, O king, leading the rear guard with 3 Akshohini divisions. Lord Krishna saw that Pundraka was carrying the Lord's own insignia, such as the conch shell, disc, sword, and club, and also an imitation Sharnga bow and Srivatsa mark. He wore a mock Kaustubha gem, was decorated with a garland of forest flowers, and was dressed in upper and lower garments of fine yellow silk. His banner bore the image of Garuda, and he wore a valuable crown with gleaming shark-shaped earrings. Purport. Srila Prabhupada comments in Krishna, quote, when the 2 kings came before Lord Krishna to oppose him, Krishna saw Pundraka face to face for the first time. Om ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकधामयं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथं वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा श्रील well, let's cut it off a little bit short here because I think we're coming up on 7:30. So let's get right to it, if that's okay. But Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari. So this is one of my favorite pastimes in the Krishna book, just because it's like really funny to me. Like, so it's mentioned, I think it might have been perhaps in the last class when Krishna first heard the message by Pondrika, and he was telling Krishna how you should give up your imitation of being the Supreme Lord, and actually I'm the real Supreme Lord, and you should get it together and stop pretending, basically. And um, and it's mentioned there that Krishna was in the assembly when this was heard. It was a letter that was read out to the entire assembly, and it's mentioned that Krishna then laughed along with the assembly for a considerable amount of time. And just picturing that to me is really funny. The fact that Krishna and his friends, his advisors, are all just laughing at the fact that this person is convinced that he's actually God and that Krishna is an imitation. But as funny as it may seem, Um, definitely I, and from what I've witnessed, many others have come to a point in which they feel that they are the supreme personality of Godhead to one extent or another. Um, this is something that is almost an easy trap to fall into from time to time. Here we are in this individual body, apparently able to manipulate things around us in such a way that we can enjoy them. From our perspective, we are the center of the universe, right? Everything that we see is coming from us. It's not that we have a bird's eye view and we're easily able to see things from other people's points of view, but actually everything around us is all perceived from the perspective of me and who I am, what's best for me, what's going to bring me pleasure, what's going to bring me pain, and we operate in the world like that. And so, because that's the natural default, it's easy for us to become absorbed in that. It's kind of it's kind of where it feels that the gravity of the material world is pulling us towards this sense of I and mine. And so, the natural progression of that is ultimately coming to this point where, like Pundrika, we think that we are God, and we are meant to be the ultimate controller and the ultimate enjoyer of everything around us, and that's what will make us happy. But if we use our intelligence, which is the hallmark of the human being, the sense of heightened intelligence, the fact that we could actually observe what's truly happening around us and then adjust accordingly, conduct a study of reality as opposed to illusion. If we utilize that intelligence, then we can see that actually that's not how it goes. That we actually don't become happy from controlling the world around us and manipulating things in a way that we can enjoy them. This is seen not only perhaps from our own perspective, but in the great histories throughout the world. Right, so many kings throughout the world have come to these awful demises. Um, People who have controlled large portions of the entire world often end up in a moment in an end filled with despair, um, and complete and utter um, helplessness. Right. Two major examples, of course, being perhaps Hitler, we could say, as somebody who as Hitler is somebody who controlled much of the Western world, much of Europe, um, and then wound up hidden in a bunker as the Allied forces came in and were about to capture him, and of course, as far as we know, committed suicide. Um, so you could imagine somebody like him who, by all means, was the supreme controller, at least from our perspective, from what he could see, from what we could see. Um, the amount of power that he was able to accrue and the extent to which he was able to impose his will on the world around him was unlike anything we've really seen in modern history. But even still, it only lasted for a few short years before he ultimately met a very grueling and dishonorable demise, right? It was just a matter of time before reality set in for him. That's a huge example, and what to speak of Alexander the Great, who also conquered so much of the Western Hemisphere, is widely known as perhaps the greatest conqueror and ruler in the modern historic era, but all because of a little mosquito was suddenly and unceremoniously um, taken from all that he had accrued and ultimately died. So those are some big examples. We see also in examples in the more modern times, like somebody like Michael Jackson, who is like Krishna in in a few ways, in the sense that he was beloved by so many, extremely talented, able to almost hypnotize people with his musical abilities, um, from a very young age, right? Was had these kind of natural powers, of being able to move people and do things that were extraordinary, especially for a young person. Um, but ultimately, uh, yeah, was ended his life in disgrace, in a disgraceful manner. Perhaps the pressure of that position was too much for him, and how could it not be, right? And this is the point that I'm kind of getting at, is that Krishna, because he's God, is able to um, very gracefully and very beautifully bear the weight of being the supreme person, of being the person whom everybody looks up to, of being the person whom everybody admires, whom everybody ultimately wants something from, right? Ultimately, that's kind of his position, is that we're all subordinate to him, to Krishna, and he's providing us with everything that we need for our sustenance. So other people throughout history who we've seen try to take that role, people like Michael Jackson, who everybody kind of wanted something from the music, the feeling that his music gave them, um, especially fans of his wanting his attention, things like that. It oftentimes drives them into insanity. We see it with other people as well, Kanye West, uh, even Jeffrey Epstein, interesting example. Somebody had so much power, who so many people were dependent upon, but ultimately wasn't able to handle it, broke down and started doing reprehensible things, and let everybody down, basically. So we've seen over time people who have kind of played this out, this kind of I'm the controller, I'm the enjoyer, played it out to the fullest extent, as Pondrika is kind of doing here, ultimately meet a very unceremonious and unfortunate demise, almost ironically, right? Almost in the sense that it's meant to be to provide us an example of what that actually becomes, what that actually looks like when you fully take that ideology of being the supreme controller, being the supreme enjoyer to its fullest extent. Um, we're shown what actually is produced of that illusion, right? Obviously, so many examples in the Bhagavatam too. Pretty much, I would say maybe 70, 80% of the Bhagavatam is just examples of kings who, in one way or another, realize that they're not the controller, they're not the enjoyer. And unlike, the king of pop, Michael Jackson, they turn to Krishna. These kings turn to Krishna. They become Rajarshis and ultimately realize who the supreme controller and enjoyer is, and become truly glorious in that realization. Um, so it's refreshing to hear these kinds of things. It's also kind of comical, right? That this guy is dressed up as Krishna, is holding a lotus flower and a conch shell, and doing his best to impersonate Krishna. But although it's funny, it should also hopefully inspire us to reflect, to what extent am I trying to be Krishna, especially in times of despair. We it could be a valuable practice to take a step back and look at it. Well, am I upset? Am I feeling stressed out? Am I feeling unsatisfied because of the fact that I'm trying to be Krishna in some way? Am I trying to be the controller in some way? Am I trying to be the enjoyer? Because as long as we're in that state, as long as we're of that mentality, then we can't attain peace, right? That's Bhagavad Gita Basics 529. Bhoktaram yagatapasam sarvalokam maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam gatpamam shantim richjati. That Krishna is the supreme controller, the supreme enjoyer of all sacrifices, or sacrifices is a broad term explained in depth throughout the Gita, but it could mean anything. In one sense, that any time that somebody is um, working towards something, sacrificing some immediate pleasure for some ultimate gain. So Krishna is actually the enjoyer of all those sacrifices, including the ones that we do. So basically, in all of our work, Krishna is meant to be that ultimate enjoyer. So Bhoktadam Yagyatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram is the supreme controller of all the planets. So as much as we want to try to manipulate things according to our enjoyment, and of course some manipulation is required, right? We can't just sit back and expect Krishna to take care of anything. But to the extent that we think that we're the ultimate be all end all in terms of what actually becomes of our attempts, to move about in the world and to arrange things in a certain way, to that extent that we think that we're that guy, we can't be peaceful, right? Because actually Krishna is that guy. Um, Bhoktadam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Suhridam Sarvabhutanam. And also Krishna is our best friend, right? And that's very comforting in a sense, right? Because yes, we understand he's the controller of all the worlds, but if he's not our friend, if he doesn't love us, then we could be in trouble, right? He's in control, he's most powerful, but maybe he's not doesn't have our best interest in mind. And on the other side, if he was our best friend, but he wasn't the controller of all the worlds, then what could he really do? I have a few friends, but they can't control whether or not I get food or I get water or get enough sunlight or whatever it is. But Krishna is that person. Krishna is our supreme friend and also the supreme controller. So to the extent that we understand this verse says, then Gatmamam Shantim Richati, we actually become peaceful. To the extent that we understand that Krishna is this person, the supreme controller, the supreme enjoyer, and our best friend, to that extent we actually attain what Pundrika is trying to get, right? And what we or other people are trying to get by trying to be that controller, that enjoyer, that friend to all. We actually attain that peace, that satisfaction of the soul. So it's all laid out very clearly in Bhagavad Gita. It's just a matter of application, right? And we're all in it here. We're all attending the morning Bhagavatam class. We're all trying to get closer to Krishna, but still, it could be difficult in our day to day to be reminded of this and actually live in this realization that I'm not the supreme controller, I'm not the supreme enjoyer, I'm not the supreme friend to all. Krishna is. So our modus operandi should therefore be, how can I live in that realization? How can I constantly remember this, that Krishna is the man and that I'm not the man, that Krishna is uh, is God and I'm not God. And that's obviously very nicely laid out and made extremely clear, right? In Prabhupada's books, in Bhagavatam, in Bhagavad Gita, practically every verse, we're reminded of, of how to do that. That's why it's funny how, like, sometimes people will say with Prabhupada's Gita, oh, it's this particular translation that emphasizes a certain aspect of the Bhagavad Gita, but no, the essential aspect of the Bhagavad Gita is the fact that we should always remember this. We should always remember Krishna. We should never forget Krishna. That we should just surrender to Krishna. That's made very clear. And then Prabhupada, in his translation and in his purports, is explaining how do we do that. And of course, it's Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. That's simply hearing about Krishna, chanting Krishna's names, Krishna's glories, and remembering Krishna. That's how we can get to this state of Shantim Richjati, of actual happiness, of actual peace, of actual satisfaction, and of actual absorption in Krishna and in our relationship with Him. Um, so our again, our modus operandi should be how do we constantly remember Krishna? So that comes through developing a system, right? I saw a quote recently. It was something along the lines of, you know, dreamers have dreams, or you could say like goals, but achievers, people who actually achieve those dreams, have systems, has systems that they keep in place and abide by. And so it's very valuable to have some kind of system through which we are being reminded of Krishna, and through which we could actually, throughout our day, throughout the week, throughout the month, and throughout our life, gain more and more remembrance of Krishna and a deeper and deeper understanding of Him, and thus deepen our relationship with Him. And so Prabhupada was very clear about that, chanting a certain number of rounds every day, of course, but doing it in a really nice way, right? Trying to constantly improve the quality of our rounds, trying to make japa great again, as my guru likes to say. And how can we improve our japa? How can we systematically improve our japa? What we could take stock of our current situation with japa, and how can I um, become more concentrated and make sure that my mind is in as good a place as possible when I'm chanting. So that's a big one. Prabhupada mentioned working up to 16 rounds, and ideally doing more than that on a daily basis. And then also having like a set hearing schedule. So we're hearing from Prabhupada's books a certain number of pages or a certain number of verses every single day. Perhaps even chanting a chapter of Bhagavad Gita a day, just the verses. And through that, once we commit to that kind of system, both hearing and chanting, then Vishnu Smaranam becomes automatic in one sense, because we're filling our head and filling our heart so much with Krishna through hearing and chanting about Him, then naturally we'll remember Him, and naturally we'll we'll forget ourselves as the controller and the enjoyer more and more. Remember Krishna as that person more and more, and Gatvamam Shantim Richjati will attain peace, and we won't have to be laughed at like Pandrika, who is trying to go all out in the material sense and really be Krishna. We can avoid that, and instead we can be the ones laughing with Krishna um, in a very loving way, and come to a point of full absorption in Krishna's service and attain ultimate peace. So now we'll take some questions or some reflections.
Thank you, Anupama Prabhu. Great class / session. Bhakti session, Bhakti therapy session. Thank you, Prabhu. Wonderful. Temple Run has their hands up.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Very refreshing to hear the simple truth. Yogi Prabhu's father was here, and I heard him tell his son, the first sign of intelligence is, you remember? Humility. The first sign of intelligence is humility. We see the tremendous depth of ignorance that this character assumes, outright pretending that he's the Supreme Lord and accusing Krishna of being a phony. It's so ridiculous, you know. So the first sign of intelligence is humility. And we saw this sign in the pizzeria: hire a teenager while they still know everything. Well, they still know everything, you know. So we're in our beginning stages of knowledge. It says a little knowledge is dangerous. Moron, I mean, the sophomore. Soph means wise and more means fool, like moron. Yeah. So a person who has a little bit of knowledge becomes proud, and then they're pretending to be fully aware is totally ridiculous. Anyway, first sign of intelligence is humility. I thought that was really cool when he said that. We'll go to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you. Okay. Anupam Prabhu. So we're not the enjoyer and not the controller, and Krishna is the enjoyer and the controller. But then on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Krishna told Arjuna, you're not the controller, you're not the enjoyer. Go and fight. Why didn't he tell him, oh, just surrender to Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra, give up your rightful claims, go to the forest and pray and remember Krishna at all times? Why did he tell him to go and fight specifically? In other words, how we remember Krishna while dealing with the situation on the ground in a practical sense. How do we apply that remembrance to the challenges that come up in our lives? Understanding that we're not the controller, but still there are things that we need to deal with in our life, because sometimes it's just difficult. How do we do that?
Yeah, in my experience, it's always been a direct relationship between the amount that I'm chanting and hearing and the depth in which the depth that I'm applying to my hearing and chanting, and the extent to which I'm able to move about in the world, perform my material duties with remembrance of Krishna. Yeah, it's mentioned in the first canto. I forget exactly where, but it's funny that whoever did the editing at that time actually italicized this one point that Prabhupada said in a purport, where he said, we should work very hard. We should work very hard in the material world and give all the results to Krishna. So that's always emphasized, and there's just so much to do. There's so much to do as a devotee in Kali Yuga here in the world, and especially in New York City. There's just unlimited amounts of service, practically. There's unlimited amounts of opportunities to spread Krishna's glories, to connect with people and tell them about Krishna, to develop projects centered around providing a Krishna conscious experience for people, and of course, to provide for oneself, for one's family, and to perform one's varnashram duties, according to their position. There's just unlimited amounts of work to do, and Prabhupada says, yeah, we should work really hard. Krishna says you should work. You should do your work and do it for me. Do it in remembrance of me. So there's no lacking in terms of the amount of work that's available to please Krishna. It's unlimited and ever increasing. It's not going to go away at any time, and it's only going to increase as we move along in our Krishna conscious career, as we become more qualified and learn more and are able to affect the world in different ways. So there's no question of going to the forest, of course, and yeah, that's shown in in this in the Bhagavad Gita with Arjuna's experience, and also throughout the Bhagavatam, where so many devotees um, attain a certain state, especially the ones at a young age, and then Krishna says, "Yeah, now do your thing. Now do your duty. Now go rule, over the world." Dhruva Maharaj was what, 5 or 6 years old when he saw Krishna attain perfection, and Dhruva was thinking, "I guess now I get to just be with Krishna all the time." And they said, "No, no, you gotta do your thing. You gotta be a ruler. You have to lead by example, and I'm going to give you governance of an entire planet or the pole star." Um, yeah, Narada, who attained perfection at a very young age, and then Krishna said, "Yeah, it's not, you're not done. Now you have some service to do." Only time we see people eventually retreat to the forest is when they're very old, um, where they've already performed their duties to satisfaction. Um, but even still, that's not true across the board. There's many examples of people who just continue doing their service all throughout their entire lives. Look at Srila Prabhupada. So yeah, I'm not sure if that fully answered your question.
Yeah, it's beyond what I asked. It's just so nice. Thank you, Prabhu. I'm recalling Srila Prabhupada. I'm not sure if that's a class or a letter. Maybe somebody could help me, but Srila Prabhupada said something along the lines of externally, a devotee should act as if they were in control, but internally, we understand that Krishna is in control. So we shouldn't be impractical or foolish or stupid externally. We should do what we need to do. But internally, we should be surrendered. Thank you very much, Anupama.
Yeah. What's that? Like a lion in the streets, or what? Like a lion to the public, and then like a lamb at home. We
Oh
could apply,
yeah,
we could
yeah,
apply, yeah. We could apply that to Krishna as well. We can be like a lion and deal and doing our duties, and providing for our family, or for um, performing whatever our duties might be. But then internally, before Krishna and before the devotees, we could be just like a lamb, and very humble and very gentle and sweet and loving. And that's a winning combination for sure, to have that internal mood of surrender and loving, humble service to Krishna, and to allow it to manifest like Arjuna does on the battlefield, like a lion, and
yeah. Arjuna is the example of that. Thank you, Anupama. Garanga Lila.
This Hare Krishna, thank you so much for the class. This this Bhagavatam class reminded me of a cartoon I watched about the same story. Krishna was for kids. It was very funny, I remember. Reminds me of my childhood watching about it.
where are you from?
I live here in Brooklyn.
Oh, you live in Brooklyn. Cool,
Yeah.
nice. Your parents are devotees?
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I was watching SpongeBob and Rocket Power when I was your age. But it worked out. But I'm glad you got a head start, and we're counting on you to do big things in the New York City Krishna scene.
So
Okay.
how do I develop more taste to the job, but not only just chant, but develop it even more?
It's a good question.
Taste for japa, great question. I can't wait to hear what Anupama has to say.
Yeah, obviously, everybody could have a different answer what's worked for me, for sure, is not being in a rush, is setting aside enough time to the point where I can really consciously hear Krishna's names. It's it could be a matter. It's both a matter of technique and a matter of the heart. You know where the heart is. So many different things. I guess if I had to centralize it in 2 minutes, I would say really hearing Krishna's name and Rama's name and Hare's name, drawing it out. Hare Krishna, really letting the heart hear the syllables. The name is actually non-different from Krishna and from Srimati Radharani. And so understanding that and chanting with that knowledge, right? Sacrifice performed it with knowledge is the highest. Japa is the highest sacrifice. So knowing that Krishna is non-different from his name and really hearing the name Krishna when you're chanting, setting aside enough time so you don't feel rushed. And you can slow it down a lot when you lose concentration and just draw it out here. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, really hearing the name and knowing that it's non different from Krishna. Um, and really, yeah, zoning in on that. Two things. Knowing that Krishna is literally in front of you when you say his name, because it's his name and him are non-different. Knowing that Srimati Radharani, if that's who you are concentrating, is actually literally in front of you through that vibration, because the vibration Hare is none different from her, and feeling that you're actually chanting in front of them, because you literally are, because their names are non different from them, and hearing those names then being, and in that sense, fully hearing those names is non different from being fully in their presence. And then all of a sudden you're not in the material world anymore. Now you're in a transcendental space. Now you're in Vrindavan because you're there with them and you're able to connect. So
But what if you have a monkey mind? Like,
you just slow it down, and hear as much as possible. And yeah, that helps. That helps with the concentration.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Darshan time. Thank you, Anupama, for a great class. Okay, turn on your cameras, please. Let's be seen by the Lord. Jeffrey Eckler is standing up, finally. It only took us a year to get him to stand up for Darshan. Hare Krishna. Jai. Shri Radha Muridhar, Shri Chandra Ki Jai. They look so happy.
Shri Radha Muridhara Gaur Chandra Nrsimha Bhagavan ki Jai. Shri
H.
Prabhupada ki
Jai. Thank you. Rangalila, you want to know something? Srila Prabhupada was once asked how to control the mind. Srila Prabhupada said, so you want to know how to control the mind? And the devotee said, yeah, how do I control my monkey mind? Srila Prabhupada said, ignore it. That's
What?
how you control it. Ignore it.
Ignore it.
Ignore it. And move on with your service. So you sit down to chant japa and your mind wants to watch a cartoon, SpongeBob, maybe it's for Jeffrey Eckler, pitch into Jeffrey Eckler. Then you just ignore it and move on with your service. Srila Prabhupada's instruction. Okay, Anupama who left. Okay, we can maybe discuss something. I don't know, he's here. Anupama is here. Anupama, if you have a few minutes, maybe we can take a few questions or reflections, like your Guru Maharaj always does. Reflections and questions. Let's do it. Who wants to speak?
Bhagya, Bhagya, Mother Bhagya, can you do devotional service as a career out of love? It's a big question. I think it's a subtle thing. I think it depends on the. Well, I mean, of course, anything you do can be devotional service, right? So the question, I guess, is kind of what do you mean by devotional service per se? Like, do you mean like worshiping the deities as a career, or?
I mean, like, I mean, like serving people too. And I mean, like, not having it like actual job, like just put your like put yourself to God, your heart, like and like putting yourself to God, like all your like
Okay. Yeah, I think I get it. It's a sliding scale, I would say. It could also be a slippery slope, to use two different cliches, but I think it depends a lot on the specific kind of work. Like there are plenty of devotee-run businesses. That the center is Krishna. Ananda Bihari Prabhu is one of those guys. He's kind of a boss types of places. Adi Purush Prabhu, and they're employing many devotees in the direct service of Krishna, and it's a very easy way to work, to make money, and to also stay deeply connected to Krishna because you're serving guests prasadam. They have
Okay, I'm doing
what's that,
it.
Garangalila?
I'm doing it.
You're
Oh.
doing yeah. So that's one way, in which you can do, say, do devotional service as a career. In another sense, there's a lot of people who work, corporate jobs that are able to maintain very high standards of sadhana, of devotional service in general. They're not, letting themselves be brought down by, the energy around them too much. And in their heart, they're thinking that all of my work is, I'm doing it for Krishna. I'm doing it so that I could perform my devotional service, in a good way, provide for my family who are devotees, provide donation to the temple, and that's fully authorized as well. Prabhupada was a medicine salesman. He wasn't, in one sense, he wasn't doing. I mean, I don't want to say not doing devotional service, but he was employed by a person who wasn't necessarily a devotee, um, and was selling medicine. But in his heart, it was always, I'm doing this for Krishna. And Arjuna was killing people, very intensely, but he was doing it for Krishna. And so, how can we say that that's not devotional service? Of course not. That's the whole
That
premise
is
of Bhagavad Gita, is that you can literally kill people if that's your duty. If you're fighting in a war that's against evil, per se, you could kill people, and it could be devotional service. But yeah, at the same time, of course,
yeah,
but
okay.
yeah. So, but there are alternatives now, thanks to people like Adi Purush Prabhu and Nanda Bihari Prabhu, and other devotees who are developing systems through which devotees can make money and still be very, very closely connected to Krishna in an external way, and hopefully in an internal way as well.
Thank you for your answer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhagya. Wonderful question. Anupama, wonderful answer. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, shall we take one more reflection? Yeah, working with devotees is fun. It's not easy, but it's fun. Vinisha has her hand up. Go ahead, Vinisha.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, not a question, just a public service announcement that this Saturday at the Bhakti Center, Mother Urmila Devidasi is giving a day-long workshop on sort of Dharma, your career and how to square it with your faith. And I know Prashant Prabhu is on the line, he's going to go. But if anybody is interested in sort of learning how to bring their career and their work life in alignment with their Dharma, that's happening this Saturday at the Bhakti Center. Hare Krishna.
I think Krishna just answered our answers. Clearly.
Krishna supplied a whole seminar.
Yeah, there's a whole seminar this Saturday for your pleasure from Krishna. Haribol.
Great. Yeah, we'll put the link to the seminar in our WhatsApp group. By the way, if you're not in the WhatsApp group, join the WhatsApp group. I'm gonna put the link in the chat.
Nice.
Hemangi says, my husband Sachin will be attending. Yes, great, wonderful.
Yes, everyone, please go see Mother Urmila speak. She's really powerful and just an incredible teacher. That was her profession for a long time. And I've heard from her on many occasions, and I'm always really impressed. On another PSA, Bhadra Purnima is coming up. We got Bhagavatams. We got lots of Bhagavatams that need homes. So if anybody here needs a Bhagavatam set, we got the little ones too. They're really cute. They're like, like this big compared to the.
This big?
What's that? They're tiny.
This
Yeah,
big?
they're tiny.
Tiny.
They're like all 12 canto size, except like maybe half the length. But yeah, like this kind of skinny. So they're easier to throw in your bag and take around with you. We got that one. We got plenty other Bhagavatams. And if you need a Bhagavatam set, we could work something out. get you a deal since you're a devotee. Or if you want to gift it to somebody else, that's also nice. Or if you know anybody that doesn't have a Bhagavatam set, that
I want.
Bhagya
I
wants
mean,
a Bhagavatam.
because I'm not in the I'm not in the I live in Canada, so it's like not
Yeah,
in US side, Canada side.
that's fine. Yeah, we
You ship to Canada, Anupama?
Oh yeah, ship anywhere,
Okay,
especially Canada.
Yeah.
So, Buggy, if you just want to drop your number in the chat, then I'll WhatsApp you and
okay.
sort it out.
Anupama Prabhu is a Maharaj. He's giving class and distributing books at the same time. That's good job. Okay.
Nice.
Garangalila says, if I make my own kindergarten class, can I preach about Krishna to kids? Yeah. So that's the question. Can you preach to kindergartners? You think Garangalila is qualified to preach?
Well, Dhruva Maharaj or Prahlad Maharaj did it.
Oh,
They were like
they found one.
kindergartners, right? They were 5 years old. That's like kindergarten age. So I think he answered your question.
Yeah, go for it, Garangalila. Just keep it fun. Make it fun for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and serve Prashanam after class. Prashanam lollipops. All right. Thank you very much, dear devotees. It's always a pleasure to be in your association. Hare Krishna to you. Thank you. Take good care of yourself. Keep going with your service. Ignore your monkey mind. Remember Srila Prabhupada. Remember the gift of japa that Srila Prabhupada gave us. And stick to one another. Serve one another. Cooperate. And everything is going to be all right.